Well, I want to say to you how grateful I am that about 4 or 5 years ago now, I guess it has been, that we had a visitor that walked through our doors here at New Paris. His name was Steve Hill, and I didn't know him, and I had never heard of Destiny Rescue before. And then I found out that they were down in Syracuse, of all places, and I didn't even know it. And when he sat down, I could not help but feel not just the pain, but the energy and the excitement about doing something that was truly making a difference in the life of young people who were being put into slavery, really, into this thing that we call sex trafficking today, that is so in our news today. You hear about it all over. And when you think about those young girls and what they go through on a daily basis, for any of you who have ever had children or grandchildren, you can't hardly bear the thought that your child or your grandchild would ever go through something like that. Well, it didn't take very long that we fell in love with what Steve was doing, because it was making a difference. It wasn't just bringing young girls out of sex trafficking, but it was helping them to grow spiritually again. It was helping them to get a footing again in life. And I thought that was something that was really special about what Destiny Rescue is doing. And he is now retired, and I met Chris Howe just about a week ago or so in my office, and he is now doing what Steve was doing. I want you to know that Chris is a pastor. In fact, he's a pastor, was a pastor right here in our community, over here at Waterford Community Church. And he was feeling God tugging at his heart. There was something else that God had for him. The ministry is a tremendous calling that God gives. It is so special. It is so rewarding. But when I think about Chris's move to this next area of his life, I think there's just not much difference there. In fact, it is such an incredible thing to wake up and know that every day you get to make a difference in the life of young girls that are going through what they're going through. At the end of our service today, we're going to pray for Chris too, because he's going to be going to Thailand and Cambodia, and he's going to be shadowing those who are going in and bringing these girls out of that horrific setting that they're in. And I'm excited about what he is going to share with you today. I'm so grateful that we get to just play a small part in that. And certainly I think there's so much more that we can do. And I pray that Chris challenges us in that, to find other ways that we can walk alongside of Destiny Rescue. At the end of the time together today, there's tables out there, and there are things you can purchase, and those things go to help those girls as well. But I think there's so much more we can do. And I pray that you will just be burdened for that today. So I'd like to ask that you would just help me this morning to welcome Chris Howell this morning as he comes and shares this ministry that I think that is so powerful. Did I say Chris? Did I say Powell? I'm sorry. Chris Howell, sorry. I haven't you before? Me too. Would you help me to welcome him this morning? God bless him.
If you want to get that. Well, good morning. It is wonderful to be here. I knew I was in good shape when I came in a couple of weeks ago and sat down with Pastor Dave, and I looked around at some of the pictures in his office, and there was family members with Steelers jerseys on. So I knew we were going to be in good shape. Then we found out at our church families, we both have the same welcome attendance policy, that everybody is welcome in our doors unless you're a New England Patriots fan. And then back corner for you. So applause from the tech booth. I appreciate it. I like you guys back there. So my name is Chris Russell. I've been a pastor for 20 years. The last 9 years of that was at Community Church of Waterford, which is right over by Kircher's Orchard. We actually lived, if you're going, which is north from here, I'm turned around. Thank you. So as soon as you go across the bridge, that first house on the left, that's where we've lived for the last 9 years. And we just moved to the other side of town, but we have just been right around the corner from you guys for quite a while. Our church family partnered with Destiny Rescue about the same time. We were about 4 years ago that Destiny Rescue came and spoke with us, and the same thing that happened with Pastor Dave. My heart was just shattered and broken for the reality of what was going on in the world around us. And I have never seen anything in my 20 years of ministry that transformed a church family as much as partnering with Destiny Rescue to battle against this terrible evil. Now, let me start off by giving you some numbers. Some sports fans in here? Anybody sports fans? 8 of you. Okay. Dave, we've got some work to do here, evidently. So, you know, the Super Bowl was just a few weeks ago, right? How much, NFL just makes money hand over fist, don't they? How much money do you think the NFL brought in last year? How much money? Too much. That's a good way to put it. Okay, the NFL brought in $8 billion last year. Our top 4 sports, football, baseball, basketball, and hockey, the 4 of those sports together last year brought in $30 billion. All right? Just keep that number in your mind. Now, how many of you have to have your caffeine fix? Any of you that's it, more caffeine fixes than sports fans? Great, okay. So here's another number for you. Coca-Cola, and Starbucks. How many of you are guilty of using that as your caffeine fix on a regular basis? Okay. Coca-Cola and Starbucks combined $57 billion they made last year. Now, how many teenagers do we have in here today? See some teenagers. All right, let me talk your language a little more. Some of your favorite brands. Let's start with shoes. Adidas, Nike, Vans, Converse. Clothing, we get into Forever 21, Urban Outfitter, Calvin Klein, Abercrombie & Fitch, and Hollister. All of those massive teen draw companies together made $78 billion last year. That's a lot of money, isn't it? Now let's turn our focus on the business that brings us together today. Human trafficking is the fastest growing illegal enterprise in the world. There are more people around the world in slavery today than there has ever been in human history. So how much money do you think human trafficking made this past year? Human trafficking made $150 billion. And of that $150 billion, $99 billion of that was from the sex trading business. And here's some more sobering numbers for you. There are over 1 million children being sexually exploited right now all over the world. And 73% of them are in Asia and the Pacific, where the majority of our work at Destiny Rescue takes place. We are operating right in the darkest of the darkness and the ugliest of the ugly. Now, Destiny Rescue was birthed out of a desire to rescue kids from being trafficked. We are an international, Christian-based nonprofit group that is dedicated to rescuing and restoring children that are victims of sexual slavery. And our mission is to end sexual trafficking worldwide, and our heart is ensure that every child everywhere can go to bed at night, lay their head on a pillow knowing that they are loved, that they are valued, and that they are safe. The stories of how these children end up in being exploited are horrendous, and they start with so many different issues. Many of those include poverty. Take, for instance, the story of Lee. Now, so you know our policy. Anytime we tell a story of a child, anytime we use a photo of a child, we change the name and we adapt the photo so you don't see their whole face. These children have been exploited most of their lives, and we're not going to exploit them further. So we use different names, and when you see images of the children, you always notice that maybe you just see the smile or kind of a phased look of their picture of their faces and everything, and we do that on purpose to keep them from being further exploited. But Lee's family was struggling terribly with their finances. And one day her mom came into the house and she yelled at her, telling her that she was dead weight and she needed to go out and she needed to start making some money for the family. Now, Lee lived in a small, remote village, and she had no idea what the big city was like. But because her mom kept pushing her to make some money, she found a ride in a truck and she made the long 6-hour journey to the city. And these are her own words describing what happened next. I'm looking for work on the first day. I take a tuk-tuk, which is a taxi, around the city. I meet one lady at the noodle shop. I had my backpack and I order some noodles. This lady sits by me and she starts asking questions, and I explain that I'm looking for a job, and she asks me what I want to do. I tell her I want to work in a restaurant with a friend, but I can't find my friend's phone number. So the lady offers to help to find her. The lady at the noodle shop asks me where my friend is, and I explain that my friend works at a restaurant. And the lady asks me the name of the restaurant, but I don't know. And the lady pretends to call my friend, and she tells me that she has made contact with her and she is waiting for me at the restaurant. At this point, I trust her and she takes me to the restaurant. And once I get there, I could see that it wasn't a restaurant. It had many, many rooms, and I was very confused. I don't know what this job is, so I asked the lady, "What job is this?" And she says, "Don't worry." And she tells me that my friend is waiting inside. And then she tells me to go inside with my friend and relax because tomorrow I have to start work. I go inside, but I couldn't find my friend, and I go back out and I ask the lady, and she says that my friend must have gone somewhere to eat. And the lady says, I'll prepare a special room for you. So she takes me to a room and she says, stay here and sleep because tomorrow you work. And then at 6 o'clock at night, the lady says that I have to have a shower and put makeup on and a short skirt. And I'm confused because I just wanted to meet my friend and see how she is. I'm worried why my friend isn't here, and I prepare myself, as the lady said, because she told me that my friend is coming to pick me up. And I ask, what work happens at nighttime? And she said, don't worry about it. Your friend is coming soon to pick you up. And I waited for my friend for a long time, but she doesn't come. And I see many men coming in and they ask me for sex, but I don't understand. A man says, I come here all the time, and if you live here, you have to have sex with men. And he took me and he grabbed my hand and he forced me into the room. And I'm still confused and I cry. I try to call to my friend to come and get me. And I was raped. I was a virgin, and now I cry every night, and I'm very sad. Now, I wish I could tell you that Lee's story was the exception. But the reality is there are thousands of more stories just like hers that are taking place right now as we are gathered here together. Children that are forced into acts that no child should ever have to experience. Children that are treated as if they were totally useless and meaningless. Children that have lost all sense of hope and a future. And as followers of Christ, this simply cannot be acceptable when we have the ability to do something about it. Psalms 82:4 says, rescue the weak and the needy, deliver them from the hand of the wicked. If you are a follower of Jesus Christ, you know what it's like to be rescued. Jesus did it when he paid the price for you and me at the cross. You have been rescued from hopelessness and despair. You have been rescued from darkness and shame. You have been rescued from sin and from an eternity separated from God. And what God has done for us, we need to join him in doing for others. We are rescued to rescue. So how do we do this at Destiny Rescue? As I mentioned earlier, we are fighting this evil in the worst places on the planet. So we are working in Cambodia, Thailand, India, the Philippines, and the Dominican Republic. And we have a few other undisclosed locations where they're so dangerous and volatile right now, we don't even make our presence known there in an effort to keep our workers safe. But we have undercover agents in all of our countries who work with local authorities and anti-trafficking agencies to rescue children from being exploited and bringing the offenders to justice. So when we go in, we have two types of rescues that we do. We have one that's called a soft rescue. And the soft rescue is where our undercover agents go into these brothels, and the mama-san is the name for the manager of these brothels. They go in there and they agree to a price to be able to sit with one of the girls. And what they're looking for is they're looking for the underage girls. And they will sit with the girls and they'll come back over and over again, and they just work on building a trust relationship, getting the girls to a place where they feel like they're going to be open to hearing about Destiny Rescue and what Destiny Rescue can do for them. And then when they get to a place of building that trust, they pay the mama-san supposedly to take them away for the night, but what they do is they take them away to their freedom. So that's the soft rescue. The hard rescue is when we go in undercover, where we wear the undercover mini cameras, and we go in and we gather evidence against brothel owners. And then that's where we cooperate with local police and anti-trafficking agencies and actually go in, do these raids, get the girls out, and make sure that we seek justice for those who have been doing this to those girls. This past year alone, we rescued 1,074 children. And every single one of those kids matters so deeply to the heart of God. And since we have started, as of today, we have rescued 3,689 children from this horrible evil. Lee is one of the kids that we rescued. She vividly remembers the day that our undercover agents showed up at the brothel where she was being exploited. Listen to how she describes what happened. The first time I saw the men from Destiny Rescue, I was at the brothel. The man was always looking at me, and he seemed interested in me, and I don't know why. And he was always smiling at me. After I finished with the customer, the man comes over and he talks with me, and he explained the work of Destiny Rescue, and he asked me many questions. I've never had anyone be interested in me. He was the first one to ask about me. The man says that I'm a special girl and that I was good, and I asked him, "Are you sure? Because I don't think so." I didn't trust him, but he gave me a tip without having to do anything. So I was very confused when he left. And he said, take care and stay safe. And the second time I saw the man, there were 3 in total, and they called me over to sit with them after talking to the mama-san. And the 3 men asked, how long have you been working here? And I answered them, 4 months. I was scared and I was afraid because they were talking about taking me somewhere else, and it could be worse than where I was now. I wanted to go with them the first time, but I didn't trust them. I didn't go with them. The second visit, they explained to me and they showed me photos of the many girls that they had already rescued. And they talked about making jewelry and other opportunities that I would have. And I was afraid and nervous that it was just another brothel, but I decided to trust them, and I got on the back of their motorbike and I went to the Destiny Rescue home. Now I am at Destiny Rescue and I am very glad. My heart is happy because I have many friends and many great relationships. All the girls here are happy and smile, not like the girls in the brothel. Our agents have the opportunity to rescue children out of the darkest places. But rescuing isn't our only goal. We have what we call the 3 R's: rescue, restore, and reintegrate. When the girls are rescued, which can sometimes mean moving them out of the country in order to keep them safe, we want to make sure that they have a safe place to go. And sometimes this means one of our rescue homes where they join other rescued girls, and sometimes it means, if it's safe to do so, reuniting them with their families. They receive ongoing Christ-centered counseling, educational and vocational training, and a loving atmosphere that they need to be able to thrive in life. And it's in the midst of all of this that we hear so many stories of how these girls encounter Jesus and have their lives and their eternities changed forever. Our reintegration component is where we work to train the girls in various areas of their interest so that they can support themselves and their families and never have to worry about being drawn back into the darkness that they escaped. Many of the girls work at hair salons and coffee shops. Some of them make the jewelry that you may have already seen out in your lobby area at the display tables. And all of the money from the sale of the jewelry goes directly towards helping these young ladies provide for themselves and their families as they begin to branch back out into the world stronger and healthier and more in love with Jesus than they've ever been in their entire lives. Listen to these words from a rescued girl named Mew. She says, I thank God for leading me to this place that I call home. At the start, I wasn't sure if I would enjoy staying at Destiny Rescue, but I changed my mind because I knew that God had a good plan for me. And I thank God for bringing me here and meeting all of these wonderful people. They are friendly and kind, and even though we are from different places and families, I feel like we are from the same family. Everyone here is loved, supported, and given good advice. I was given the opportunity to train at the hair salon. I was worried that I wouldn't be a very good hairdresser because sometimes I get very tired and I'm not very strong. But I made it through the training, and I am now a hairdresser thanks to everyone in the Destiny Rescue home who always encouraged me. They are so wonderful. And I'm so thankful for Destiny Rescue for always being so supportive. Now I've accomplished everything that was required of me, and I've even been able to provide a new house for my family. The most important thing is that I will now open my own hair salon with my friend, and I am so excited. I praise God and I thank Destiny Rescue. I love this place and I will never forget it. Thank you. This is the part that gets me. Thank you for considering my life worthy enough to come rescue me. Because of you, I now have a future and I now have hope. I thank you for introducing me to Jesus Christ. I now know that I am forgiven of my sin and I am experiencing so much love and joy. And now I have a Father in heaven that loves me very much. Words can't express the gratitude in my heart for what you have done for me. And perhaps the most joyful part of the job for our counselors, our house parents, our teachers, and our other team members is staying connected with these girls for years to come afterwards, after they leave the program, and hear stories of their continued success and walk with God. A young lady named Srini called one of our team members 2 years after she had been rescued in our project in Cambodia. She was now fully reintegrated and she was living in her home village again. She was thriving in her walk with God. She had gotten married and they were expecting their first child, a baby boy. And when she first left, she felt totally useless and meaningless. But God got a hold of her through Destiny Rescue and changed her life around when she first got there. And when she first left the project, she found a job sewing clothes in a garment factory. And now, just 2 years later, she was a supervisor overseeing 4 groups of managers and more than 500 employees. She loves to encourage and lead them, just as she was encouraged and led in her time in one of our group homes. And her biggest gratitude was that Destiny Rescue introduced her to Jesus Christ, and now she was so joyful and peaceful, trusting in him. Now, I've thrown a decent amount of numbers at you this morning, enough for us all to realize what an enormous issue this is. And sometimes when we hear numbers like this, we can feel a little bit overwhelmed. Like there's no way that we can possibly make a difference. Like it's all just too big of a task. 1 million children. Who am I? Can I really make a difference? 1 million children? And I'm reminded of the story of Moses at the burning bush. One of the great questions of life is a question that God asked Moses. Moses was a murderer on the run. He was a criminal. He was a fugitive. He was running from God. He was running from Egypt. And out in the desert, he came upon the burning bush. And God said, "What is in your hand?" And Moses replied, "A shepherd's staff." And God said, "Throw it on the ground." And when he throws it on the ground, the staff becomes a snake. It becomes alive. It's filled with power. And then he says, "I want you to pick up the snake." And the snake becomes a staff again. Now, why in the world did God do that? Was he just showing off? That's not God's style. God never does a miracle to just simply show off. There is always a lesson. There is always a spiritual truth. There is always a principle behind it. And in so many ways, that shepherd's staff represented everything that Moses was. He was a shepherd. It represented his identity. It represented his income. It represented his influence. And God says, "Moses, if you will give me your influence, if you will give me your identity, if you will give me your influence, I will empower it and I will make it come alive. I will do miraculous things from it." And Moses, when he laid it down, he was saying, "God, I'm giving you everything. I'm giving you everything." And he lays it down and it becomes something of power. And from that point on, the staff was the same staff that Moses used for all of the miracles. All of a sudden, what had been simple and plain and seemingly so insignificant to him, God uses to change the world. And it's the same question that God asks of us. What is in your hand? And are we going to willing to lay it all down and give it to God and allow him to shape it and put his power in it and then pick it back up again with a new purpose and a new mission in life? What might to us seem so simple and plain and overall insignificant about ourselves, God can use to change the world. This month we celebrated Martin Luther King Jr.'s life and legacy. And one of my favorite prayers that he wrote says this: "Use me, God. Show me how to take who I am, who I want to be, and what I can do, and use it for a purpose greater than myself." As a pastor for 20 years, nothing has got me more excited than when I see the hearts of my church family closely connect with the heart of God. And I think, Pastor Dave, you will be in agreement with me on this, that when the things that matter the most and that are the nearest and dearest to the heart of God become the same things that matter the most and are the nearest and dearest to his children, it doesn't get any better than that. So how do you partner with us in changing the world? How do we give God our lives, our influence, our talents, and our passions, and partner with him in this greater purpose of rescuing these precious kids? Here's some ways that you can get involved. Check out our website, destinyrescue.org. Check that out. There's a lot of great information. Get more knowledgeable on that. Follow Destiny Rescue if you're on social media. Follow our social media platforms. And when you see great things that you think are worth sharing with your friends and family, get the word out. You are a mouthpiece for these children who have no voice. Become a rescue partner. There are 3 stories of some of our rescued girls out there, and there's a form in there where you can fill out to become a rescue partner. A rescue partner is just someone who wants to be a part of this bigger picture of Destiny Rescue's doing. If you want to do $5 a month, you can do $5 a month. If you want to do $100 a month, you can do $100 a month. Any amount that you feel God is stirring in you to be a part of that. Now let me say this as well. With having been a pastor for 20 years, I want to challenge you. If you're going to give to any of this stuff, please make sure that it is above and beyond your regular commitment to this church family. Make sure that this is a sacrificial giving on your part, something that God has stirred in you to step out and step up to do. The other thing you can do, you can rescue a child right now. On average, it's $1,500 when we go in and rescue a child. With all the money that's involved with our agents and a lot of times transportation, sometimes moving them out of country, it's about $1,500 for a rescue. And if you're in a place and God leads you, and again, that's above and beyond giving, that you want to do that, you see one of our ladies at the back table and just hand them a check and say, go get one now. Host a jewelry party. How many of you ladies like jewelry? I could ask the guys too, but I'm assuming probably have a little more audience with the ladies. So now I want to let you know that this jewelry may be the last time, probably is the last time you're going to see the jewelry, because we are ending that program. And the reason is actually a really good reason. One of the things that we've been doing for years is our gals come into the program, and when they're ready to reintegrate, they've been working at the coffee houses, they've been working at the hair salons, and they work in our jewelry factories making that jewelry. So all of that jewelry is handmade by a girl who has been rescued. So that is a great thing to be wearing around, great conversation piece, great gifts to give to other people. What we're able to do, though, is we're able to offer them higher levels of training in areas such as graphic design, cafe management and ownership, salon ownership, textile industry, farming, hotel management. So we're able to offer them these training in these different areas that they're going to be able to even make a greater income. So less and less of the girls are choosing the jewelry route, which is a good thing. But it also means that you are one of the last churches that's actually going to get to see this jewelry. So be thinking about that. I know we always do that. We do that for gifts and stuff like that too. So you may be wanting to think ahead for that, because this will probably be, I'm guessing, the last time the jewelry will be here. So just so you're aware of that. But this is, guys, this is my heartbeat here. My absolute favorite way to get involved is for you, I'm talking about you individually, create a freedom opportunity. Create a freedom opportunity. This is where you decide to do what Moses did. And you go before God and you're like, God, I want you to stir in me. Here's my life. Here's my skills. Here's my passions. I'm going to lay them down before you. And I want you to do your thing. I want you to stir in me. I want you to fire up my creativity. And I want to come up with an idea. And I'm going to get my friends and my family around me. And we're going to get at it. And we're going to raise the funds to rescue a kid. That's what I'm talking about. I want you to have your Moses moment. I want this to be something, because, Pastor Dave, you and I know we agree on this, that, writing a check, that's certainly something that can be sacrificial. But there's nothing more sacrificial than when we act and live out our faith, when we get involved and when we make this personal. James 1:22, do not merely listen to the word and so deceive yourselves. Do what it says. What would it look like for you to take some time with some family and friends and go, what can we do? What can we do? What are we knowledgeable on? What are we experts at? What are our resources in our community? What can we do to rescue a child and get after it? At our church family, that was one of the most fun things that I got to watch, was people engaging with God on this. I had the first time that Destiny Rescue came and visited us, I had a gal that came to me that was on disability. She hadn't been working for a long time. Disability. She's like, but I want to rescue a child. What can I do though? I don't work. I don't have any kind of income. So I said, all right, let's sit down. What's something you've done? What's some experience that you have? And she's like, you know what? Years ago, I used to put together bowling tournaments. There you go. She got a group of people from church around her. She planned it. They did a bowling tournament. They raised $2,000 and rescued a kid. We had one of our women's group that did 2 years in a row, did a golf tournament at Black Squirrel. Each year raised enough to rescue 2 children at both of those. We have a men's group called Fight Club. It's a 10-week challenge. We put the challenge out to our men. Guys, because Western men is what drives this whole trafficking industry. And it's God's Western men who need to stand up and be a part of the solution. And our Fight Club guys put out the challenge to see which squad was going to raise the most money. And in both of those chapters of Fight Club, they raised about $6,000 in both of those, enough to rescue 4 children in each of those chapters. One of my favorites is actually from a family from right here in New Paris. that it was a mom with 2 young daughters. I think they were 10 and 8 at the time. And their goal was to raise $200 to go towards a rescue. So do you remember those old, the plastic molds where you'd melt chocolate and pour it in that and then stick it in the freezer? You guys remember those? So they were making some of those, and they were selling these little baggies of those for $5. And they're like, let's try to raise $200. She wanted her children to be a part of helping girls to be in safe places. They put it out on social media. They shared it with family and friends and our church family. They raised the full $1,500 through that simple little act. And I thought, what does that do to an 8-year-old girl and a 10-year-old girl at that age to be a part of knowing they have rescued a peer from something absolutely horrific? And one of my favorite stories, and I make her share it often, so I actually brought her with me today, is my good friend, Jessica Holden. Jessica, you want to come up here and share a little bit about what God did in and through your family?
So, I first found out about Destiny Rescue back in 2015. There was a former CEO that had come to our church to tell us about who they are and what they were doing to fight for these children that were being trafficked. And I was pregnant with my daughter at that time, and as I sat there in my chair listening to these nightmares that these kids are having to live out every single day, all I could do was just cry. Because I had no idea that this was the world that we were living in. I really had no idea that this was the world that my husband and I were going to bring this child into. So I sat there, cradling my pregnant belly, and that's when it happened. My daughter kicked me harder than she ever had before, and then my God kicked me harder than he ever had before. And he told me that these are his children, and that they deserve the exact same love and compassion and protection that I had already vowed to give to my child. So I made a promise right then and there that for as long as I have breath in my lungs, I will do whatever I can to help this organization and to help these children, no matter how small my efforts might seem.
So then what happened? Didn't just get a hold of you, got a hold of your family as well.
Yeah.
That day. Yeah.
So after church, we all went home, and my family kind of came together, and we were tossing around some ideas of things that we could do to help, because we all felt moved by God that day, and we knew in our hearts that for us as a family, as followers of Christ, it was not even an option to do nothing. So we were tossing some ideas around, and ultimately we landed on having this big garage sale with items that would be donated to us by our community, because I'm sure you all know we have a lot of junk that we can get rid of. And we quickly realized that this was not going to be some small operation. We could not throw it in a garage or a front yard like you would usually do with a garage sale. So we needed a venue, and luckily my dad is a boss at Goshen Plumbing and Heating, and he talked to the owners there, and they agreed to donate their warehouse space to us that we could operate out of, which has been a complete game changer, and we've actually operated out of there for the last 4 years. But for the first year, our goal was to raise $1,500, just enough to just rescue one child. We opened our doors at 8 a.m., and by 9 a.m. we had met that goal. The total that we ended up raising that first year was $6,000. This is a garage sale, I want to remind you. $6,000, which is enough to rescue 4 children. The second year, we went into it with the same goal, just enough to rescue one, and we ended up raising $7,500, which is enough to rescue 5 children. And last year was crazy. Last year, we really kicked things up a notch last year. We hit the streets harder than ever before. We created a Facebook page for our event, and we shared that like crazy, and we were actually able to reach almost 20,000 Facebook news feeds with information on Destiny Rescue as well as information on our sale. We did some speaking engagements, we did interviews, we did radio interviews, podcast interviews. We really felt very prompted by God to be really bold and to completely forget everything that we thought we knew about our comfort zones, which sometimes is very hard for me, but it worked. It worked big time. Our goal for last year was, instead of just to rescue one, we changed it up a little bit, and it was to just rescue one more. We wanted to stay rooted in the fact that God will move mountains for just one, but we also know that we serve a very, very big God and that He will blow our expectations out of the water every time, and that's exactly what He did. At our 2018 Destiny Rescue Warehouse sale, we raised $23,000, which was enough to rescue 15 more children. And I'm telling you guys that to tell you this, that I know that right here in this room this morning, someone's story with Destiny Rescue is beginning, just like mine did 4 years ago. I know that God is stirring in somebody. I know that He is prompting you. He's calling you. He has chosen you to join this. And I want to encourage you that no matter how small or insignificant or impossible your idea might seem, like throwing a garage sale and expecting it to save just one life, little is much when God is in it. And we're proof of that. We've watched as 25-cent items save lives for going on 4 years now. And it's crazy because these kids are far from us in distance, thousands of miles in fact, and yet God has bridged that gap. He has crossed oceans to find us, to help save these children. He has traveled thousands of miles to find each person in this room this morning with your own individual and unique gifts and talents, all for the sole purpose of rescuing His children. He's assigned us the career of a lifetime, which is to do kingdom work. And for me, and I know for you, and for probably everybody in this room, it does not get any better than that. And I want to say thank you in advance. I want to say thank you to everyone here this morning that will clock in and answer God's calling. Because although you might not realize it yet, He is about to use you in extraordinary ways that you never even thought possible. Although you might not know it yet, there is a child out there somewhere right now waiting for their rescue. And that is a rescue that you will help to happen. Chris and I keep saying that we're working to build an army here in northern Indiana, and I firmly believe that this church is going to be a vital, vital part of that army. And I cannot wait to see how many children will find their freedom and their rescue through you guys.
If you feel like God is stirring, boy, please come and talk to us afterwards. The other website I want to give you, destinyrescue.org, is our main website. But if you're ready to step into some action, go to go.destinyrescue.org. And you're going to find out and see examples of what other people are doing. How many teenagers do we have in here again? So I want you guys to go on to the ABC Fort Wayne News. 2 nights ago, they were talking about one of the high schools in that area. They've been doing what's called Take a Stand, where they stand all day. They raise funds to rescue children. They've been doing that for 5 years now. These high schoolers have raised $72,000 and rescued 48 children. Look on ABC News out of Fort Wayne. I think it was 2 nights ago that was on there, that they carried that. If you're a runner, Race to Freedom is a great thing to tie into a local race, do a fundraising page with that. Again, it's what you already love to do. Some of you are going, no, that's not my thing. But for those of you who are raisers and walkers in that, boy, tie into that. If you're on a sports team, we have teams that do blackout games. They sell the tickets and they have a game, and all the proceeds go towards rescuing a child. We have one that's called Hairdressers Helping Hairdressers. Hairdressers here that donate some time, they do haircuts, and it goes to support some of these gals that are hairdressers over in our Project Nations that are looking to start their own hair salons. There is no limit. God has given you an amazing imagination. God has empowered you with great creativity. God has given you amazing resources. But you have to have your Moses moment of going, all right, God, this is yours. Here's what I have. I want to pick it back up and I want to use it powerfully, but the difference is God's power has to be in that. So that's the choice that you have today, is to give that to God and say, all right, God, do your thing. There is no end to the possibilities. I want to thank you for allowing us to be with you today. I want to thank you for your hearts for Destiny Rescue. I want to thank you for the hearts for these children who are being exploited all over the world. But here, can I just do a vision moment here is that okay, Pastor Dave? I just want to say this. What I would love to do down the line, and we've talked about this, this partnership is certainly going to be an awesome thing. When I'm here next and I get up here and share stories, I want to be sharing your story. I want to be sharing you girls' story and whatever you come up with there. I want to be sharing your story and your story and your story, and sharing and celebrating the rescues that New Paris Missionary Church is going to be all about in this upcoming year. That's my hope. That is my prayer for you. We are going to end our time. I have a short 4-minute video that we're going to share with you from Tony Kerwin, who is the founder of Destiny Rescue. So take that in, and then Pastor Dave will be back up to close this up. Thank you for having us.
I remember one night I got a phone call from one of the boys. He was in a brothel. He was really desperate. He said he had a 13-year-old girl, and there was heaps of guys that were trying to take this kid off him, and he was scared he was going to get violent. So one of the boys and I jumped on our bikes and we headed straight over there, and it was quite a small, grubby little bar, about 4 or 5 tables. All of them were filled with guys drinking beer and basically staring at the young girls that were handing out the drinks. And I went over and sat down at the table with the boys, and as I did, I noticed in the back corner there looked like a stairwell going down underneath the floor. So I snuck over there and went down those stairs to see what was down there. And as I got down there, I could see they'd dug out underneath the brothel and built roughly about 7 small rooms. And it was just like a thick smell of stale sweat. It was really quite disgusting. And I walked around the corner, and as soon as I got around there, I could see straight away these pair of small red shoes that some kid had obviously kicked off as she was taken into the room. And as I stood there feeling really helpless, I could hear what was going on in that room. And I remember standing there realising what that 13-year-old kid that we had up at the table upstairs, what she would have to do every single night. And I knew if we didn't do something tonight, she would end up down here at some point doing what that girl was doing right then. So I went back upstairs and sat down next to that kid, and as I did that, the agent leant over to me and he said, this girl's been here for about a week, and every night, usually 4 or 5 times, she gets taken downstairs, and she's forced to have sex with customers and basically raped by these violent men. And I looked over at this kid, and she was looking at me, and her eyes she was petrified, and it was like she was begging me to do something to get her out of that place. So I called the mama-san, the brothel owner, over, and I said I wanted to take this kid back to my hotel room, and we negotiated a price to do that. In the brothel owner's mind, I was taking her away to have sex, but what was really happening is we were taking her away to her freedom. And we just stood up, and this kid took my hand, and we walked out that brothel. She jumped on the back of my bike, and we took off to one of our rescue homes. And as we arrived, I looked back, and I just saw this gorgeous smile on this kid's face as she realised that what we were saying was true. And she went to bed, and I think she slept for 1 or 2 days, which is quite normal. And something these kids often say is, that's the first time I can remember in a long time that I've been able to go to bed and just sleep. And my dream is that all children will be able to go to bed and sleep and not work. I have a photo on my mobile phone of those little red shoes as a constant reminder that there's still one more out there. One more kid worth rescuing, never to stop. Every kid is worth the risk, worth the love, worth the cost.
And this morning, what my prayer is for each of us is that you've heard the stories, you've heard the rewards of being active and doing something. And whether it's small or large, you get to play a part in that. And I do pray that when Chris comes back next year, perhaps, the stories that we have to tell, will be such a powerful testimony to what God does when God's people, as he says, has those Moses moments, and we do what he calls us to do. We're going to pray for Chris today because he's going to be leaving in about a week, and he's going to be going and shadowing those who are doing that kind of work right now. And I would ask if maybe, Chris, would you just stand right where you're at? And maybe for some of you who are close to where he's at, would you just come and just lay hands on him? And let's pray for him this morning and ask the Lord just to keep him safe, the people that he's going to be working with, to keep them safe, and that the Lord would just continue to keep a fire in his heart to continue to do the work that God has called him to do. So would you, where you're at right now, would you just please stand with me this morning, and let's pray for him right now. Father, how grateful we are for today, and we thank you, Lord, for the work that you do in us and through us. And I pray, Lord, for the challenge that has been set before us today, that, Lord, that you would just ignite a burden in our hearts that just would not cease. So each and every child that has found themselves in this place is released and has freedom once more. Father, I pray for people like Chris and others, Lord, who are out there, who are dedicating their lives to this kind of ministry. That, Father, that you just give them that strength that only you can give. Give them the boldness and the love and the passion that these girls would see that. And Lord, that they would have trust in that. And that, Father, that they too would find those nights where they would sleep all night without fear of what was to come. Father, I pray that you give that to us as well. Keep him safe. Keep those people that he works with safe. And that we too might hear those stories once more when he returns of the work that you're doing in us and through us. Father, we thank you for this morning. We thank you, Lord, for the joy of being able to be a part of the ministry that you call us all to. And I pray, Lord, that you too would just continue to keep us at the fire. That, Lord, that we would continue to not be comfortable, to be found faithful with what you have called us to do. Man, God, I pray that you would just ignite those visions in our hearts, that we would just find those opportunities to be a part of this for your kingdom work. Father, we love you today. And Father, we thank you for all that you do and what you're going to do, Lord, through Destiny Rescue. And Father, it's in your precious and wonderful name that we pray. And all God's people said, Amen. Amen.